Hello and welcome back to the Black Eye Podcast. I am your host, Michelle. If you're new here, come in, sit down. It's good to meet you. Um, Today we're going to discuss a portion of Keke Palmer's podcast, regarding relationships. Now, if you know me, I talk about men and women's issues, mostly Black women's issues, and I found this particular part of her podcast to be extremely enlightening, because there's a little known discussion that we have in the Black and in the women community, how well-adjusted, well-to-do women also are targets for toxic people. And a lot of times, these young women think that it's something that they can do to fix these broken people, when in reality, that's not the case. These people don't really want to change. They just want to hook up with somebody, and I don't know. Anyhow, I found the conversation that Kiki had with her mother Sharon and about their family dynamic. I found it very enlightening, and I hope you find it enlightening as well. I will be interjecting a little bit to put my thoughts in, my little 2 cents worth into it, and I hope that what I do say will be enlightening. But please, if you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. I would appreciate it. At least like it, and at least leave a comment, because I really want to know what you think about it. All right, without further ado, let's get on with the video. Now, as I said, Kiki is having a discussion with her mother regarding relationships. And like I said, I will be interjecting. So here we go. Let me see, make sure I'm in the right spot here.
People are always talking about women with daddy issues,
Okay.
men with mommy issues.
Right.
We're always talking about the effects that it can have on your relationship when you have mommy issues or daddy issues or whatever it is, your household, your parents were this, divorce, X, Y, and Z.
Right.
They always talk about how difficult it is for you to have a relationship.
Right.
No one ever talks about the difficulties it is to have a relationship when you grow up with parents that seem to have no issues. I'm serious.
Right.
Where your mom and dad been married for years, you got, they were cool, they were fun, you got a good relationship with them, even let's say one of your parents came from the hood, the other one didn't. And then it's like they reupholstered the hood vibe, and it's like they went from being hood to being chill.
Right.
It's like it makes you have a great, like this, I think, almost unrealistic idea of relationships, right?
Right. Right.
Especially
I have to stop it there because I believe that to be very, very true. Um, a lot of times, when a young woman or a young man, they come from a happy family, they're looking to marry their father. And I think the reality is there are not a lot of men like your dad. There are not a lot of men like your father. Your father is a particular sort of man. The rest of the men are, you may find a man like that eventually, but he's not going to be your father. So if you're out here searching for your father and your mother, you're going to be woefully disappointed. That is for sure.
like I'm saying, like most, opposites attract.
Yeah.
It's like even with you and dad, you always talk about it.
Yeah.
You came from maybe like a little bit more of a crazier family.
Right.
His family was like really down, chill. They were all very, very close. You and your family maybe weren't that close, right?
Right.
So already that establishes the idea that look, everybody don't come from the same kind of background. Don't judge them because you never know. But I think again, me coming from that kind of background, where I hear all these fantastical stories, you're like, I grew up like this, it was hard like this. Then when I met your dad, he showed me what love was, and we fell in love, and everything was great. And we've been married for over 30 years, and he had my back, and I got his back, and we've been a team.
Yeah.
It sets the stage for this like fantastical idea of what it would be like.
Right.
Like, oh, I could find my person, and even if they don't come from the same background that I come from,
Right.
that's what it's about. I can introduce and show them love, and I was talking about this. I've talked about it with a couple of my friends that come from the same kind of background that I come from, where their parents had this very happy love story ending, and it almost set them up for failure because actually, I don't think that is always like that.
No, and it isn't like that. Unfortunately, I was saying this in a chat. Good women are targets for toxic people. And the reason that is because they're very open. They're very open to love. They don't have the shields and scars and battle wounds. They're not nuts that need to be cracked. They don't have walls up. They come into the world very open, very happy, not a lot of, you know, baggage and ghosts and all that kind of stuff. They come in open, free, happy. And that kind of person attracts. Do you understand? They attract people, even people who are toxic are attracted to that kind of person. She's a magnet for it. And somewhere along the way, you're going to attract somebody who is toxic, male or female. That's how it kind of works because you're open. You're open. And in some ways, even toxic people, they want a piece of that. The toxic ones, of course, want to mar it and destroy it and leave their wake in there, or, you know, but mostly everybody wants to be a part of that. That is what makes her Keke Palmer. That's why we all love her. That's why we all think of her as our cousin, you know? But like I said, sometimes being a good Christian girl can make you a target for toxic men.
And I also do think a lot of times when you don't come from the same background as somebody, right, it actually don't work out. Yeah. And so I'm curious of what you had to say to that. Because again, everybody always thinks, oh well, if this doesn't go this way, that person had mommy issues, or that person has daddy issues. But no one ever mentions the reality that actually you can come from a great home,
Mm-hmm.
great parents,
Yep.
and it actually ends up making you have an unrealistic expectation on
See that?
love
Yeah, sure.
because you think everything's gonna be just chill and everybody's gonna be nice like your mom and dad.
Right. Well, I came from a background. Let's just first of all let's talk about timing. I do think the generational, like my generation was totally different. You know what I mean? Like I said before, we dated the guys in our neighborhood. You know, we dated the guys we went to school with,
Yeah.
went to church with, or whatever. Whereas your generation, you guys are dating keep people across the world. You know what I mean? So I do think that there is a compatibility issue. You know,
I'm gonna challenge you and say I actually don't think it matters.
I know that Kiki is poo pooing her mom on this, but as a person who's been married for 20 years, I have to say compatibility is important. It is one of the most important components in long-term relationships, and I'm often baffled by people who get married and don't seem to have anything in common, or they're not compatible. Even the Bible says, "Don't be unequally yoked," and that's not about just money, but it's about character. It's about vision. You know, you're not going to be the same, but at least you're going to be compatible, and you're going to be similar, so that you are you're more often on the same page than not. Does that make sense?
If you have mommy issues, daddy issues,
no, I don't.
imperfect parents,
Yeah,
dating is shit. Period. And trying to
I
figure out what like there is a issue in any way you see it.
right.
Having parents that didn't that broke up, that were divorced, or that had a hard time getting along, or maybe you're not close to your dad, or maybe you're not close to your mom, sometimes actually can set you up to have realistic expectations in life.
I understand
It
what
can
you're
actually make
saying.
you say, well, you know what, sometimes people who love you will disappoint you. And
Yeah.
this is actually how you do create reasonable boundaries. I had to learn the hard way when my dad came back in my life, or I had to learn the different way when me and my mom fell out. I think that sometimes that's actually a good thing, even though it's harsh.
I know I'm stopping in a weird place, but I posted in another video that I believe that Kiki Palmer had no standards, and she had no standards, and she's saying this pretty much herself, or boundaries, because in her life and in her family, and I believe she was raised in a Christian home, and have good, parents, good, good surroundings, that you accept people for who they are, and you constantly forgive them. And so this is why I don't think Christianity, the way it's taught, prepares people for real life, because you go into this world and the world is brutal, and no one teaches you how to stop, recognize certain behaviors that can be a problem in the future, and not tolerate those behaviors. In fact, tolerance, especially in the church and in the black community, is taught to women all the time. Oh, you just give them grace. Oh, you just let it go, girl. That's just the way he is. When in another situation, most people will not accept that behavior. They just stop seeing you because they learn to recognize what may be toxic and may grow into something worse today, and they put an end to it. I say you have to be prepared to leave the table, but
Issues. I think because of me, sometimes I think I've been really naive
yeah.
because my dad is great and my uncles are great. So misogyny came at me hard and quick with the quickness.
Yes,
I
it
grew up in a
does.
house where my mom would say this what need to be, and Larry be like, okay, Sharon, go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, but
You know what
see,
I mean? So for
yeah,
me, when I entered outside of my household,
right.
and I saw that everybody doesn't really respect their wives or even women in the way that my dad respects my mom, it's a pretty rude awakening.
I understand exactly what you're saying. And the only thing I can do is speak to that from my perspective. And I just think that you just have to, I don't know, Larry and I, we had a lot in common. We both were twins. We both were the baby twin. His father died in a car accident when he was 11. My father died from cancer when I was 10.
But the way you
So,
guys view,
yeah,
I think it's important. This is a key piece here because again, we have a lot of people that's listening that have been in relationships with people that they're like, oh, they didn't come from this, and I don't want to give up on them. Right. So what do you think is the difference was? Because one of the main things you always said was, I was like, you would say, I wasn't like your dad. I didn't I didn't know love in the same way he knew it.
right,
Mine's was, yeah, I talk shit about you and I cuss you out and tomorrow we cool.
right.
So
So we know now where Kiki is getting this mentality, because she's like, yeah, we love this person. He came from a different background. We don't give up on him. And this is where I believe we women make the mistake. We make the mistake on putting up with this toxic behavior, seeing it, seeing those little flags pop up, and we try to, love the bad out of them, love the red flag out of them. When unfortunately that's not how you should deal with that situation. You should stop that situation by having a standard and not putting up with it. But here we go.
why do you think it is that you were able to fold into what dad ended up showing you to be healthy love?
Because I wanted to change.
Very
I
important.
think you have to want to change.
Very
I think
important.
you have to do a lot of self reflecting. I mean, I did come from a house, not physical violence, but verbal abuse. We said very mean things to each other.
I mean, well, that's just as impactful.
Yeah, no, without question.
Yeah.
My mother would say mean things. My father died when I was 10, so I don't really remember him being a mean person.
Sure. Yeah,
I just really remember him being a mechanic. He like fixed cars a lot. That's all that I really remember. But my mother, was a provider. She had her own business, so I learned independence from her.
Right, right.
But she also had a sharp tongue, and I learned that from her.
Yeah, I mean, it works when you need it.
Right, and we would what they call signify. Like we would say, oh, get out of my face, your breath stink, or we just said mean things to each
Come
other.
on, your breath stink.
Yeah, we would say crazy mean things to each other, and that just was our way of life.
Right.
And I think when I met your father, I was like 19 years old. They really loved each other. Like they would not say a mean things to each other, and even if they had a disagreement, they would hug afterwards.
They sure do.
And I'm like, that's some corny shit. What's going on here? You were supposed to cuss him out and mean it. Like, what the hell? I gotta show you guys how to cuss. And he would just say, I love my brother. I love my brother. I would never say that to him.
Yeah.
And I would just look at him like, okay. Because I just cussed my brother out.
We ain't talked for
and
5 months.
we haven't talked for 5 months, and that was just normal.
Yeah.
That was normal to me to get mad at my brother or to get mad at my mother or and not talk to them. And that was a form. Now I see that was a form of abuse, verbal.
Right.
You know,
Well, you're
mental.
punishing.
Yeah, I'm
You're
punishing.
So now you're saying that they're drawing, well, they're not really doing that, but they're talking about her mother being a toxic person. And now you see a little bit of the similarities. I'm trying to see it the way Kiki would see it with Darius, the toxic behaviors and, how she's going to love that toxicity out of him. But we see how that worked out, right?
punishing. Emotional punishment.
Exactly. And so I think when I met your father, I wanted change. I didn't like that stressful lifestyle. I didn't like having to figure out, when
What
she.
you got to say back all the
Yes,
time.
it's a
Somebody
game.
gonna hurt you.
And
Can I tell them I'm happy because
Right.
if something falls through, they're gonna
Right.
use it against me.
And it's a game. It becomes
Yeah.
a game. It becomes just a ridiculous way of life. And Larry was just.
But it was a cycle that you had to personally break in order to let the new way of stuff in with dad, you'd say.
Right, it was deeply embedded. That's the thing. When you are raised in a home of abuse, no matter what kind of abuse it is, verbal abuse, mental abuse, mind games,
Physical.
You learn those behaviors
To survive.
Exactly. And so basically when I met Larry, he was full of love and encouragement and all kinds of stuff. And I just liked how that felt. I just liked how it felt. And I remember one day we got into an argument and I just cussed. I said every cuss word. I mean, like anybody who knows me, I call myself a cussing Christian. And that just means that I cuss a lot, but I believe in God and I try to be a good person. But sometimes I'm just that's who I am. And but I cussed my husband out. I mean, like I called him all kind of stupid, And I'll never forget this. He waited till the next day, and he said, I love you, but I'm not gonna let you talk to me that way. And if you want to be with me, you're gonna have to talk to me the way I talk to you. And I mean it. I will be here for the kids, but I'm not here to be disrespected. And I thought about that. And I said, it's time to change. I never did it again.
Yeah, I think that's really so good, and I really love that you shared that, Mom, because I am kind of person. I was raised by dad. I was raised by you and dad. I was raised.
I want to stop and make a point on this. I think what her father, Larry, exhibited there was a standard. He put up a standard. He said, I am not here to be disrespected. I wish more women would practice that behavior. I wish that more women would sit here and stand up and say to her, look, I'm out here on the date. I don't want to be disrespected. And get up and leave the table. Don't argue. Don't fight. It's not a discussion. It's a no. And just leave. So many times I watch these videos and these women are not leaving the car. Like, get out of the damn car, woman. Have a standard. Don't let somebody disrespect you. Just once they do that, that's a no. If you want to date me, this is how you treat me. Have a standard. This man had a standard and it changed this woman's life. Not just love. He said he loved her, but he wasn't putting up with her crappy behavior, her toxic behavior. He put a stop to it. And I wish that more women would practice that right there. That right there. Practice it. And we can at least minimize abuse by not putting up with that disrespect because there's disrespect long before they put hands on you. I can vouch for that. There is disrespect long before they put hands on you. And if you don't have a standard, it will continue in that vein. So by stopping that disrespect, it's not to say anything. I wish you all well, but please, please have a standard. That is a standard right there. No, you can't love it out of them. You can't love it away. No, just no.
Is under that love and raised under Christianity, which
Here we
is
go.
the idea that all can be forgiven.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think in reality and in modern times, that is hard. It's hard to live by that because when you do live through forgiveness and accepting people who they are and what they are and flaws and all, sometimes you are hurt.
Yes.
Sometimes you're ridiculed. Sometimes you're persecuted. Sometimes they attack you.
Yeah.
Because everybody's don't want to embrace love.
That's right.
And the more that they reject love, the more that they hate themselves.
Right.
And the harder it is for you to break through because people don't want to forgive themselves.
You just really have to pay attention to people's actions because we all can run a good game
Yes, we
sometimes.
yep.
All of us can be, use the gift of gab,
Right.
but really just try to pay attention to what someone is doing. And that's what Larry did for me. He showed me he loved me. He was there. He worked with the kids. He could cook and wash clothes, and sometimes I would take a nap and I would wake up and dinner would be done.
Yes.
And you guys would be eating at the table, and
every time people are like, "Who's looking for Thanksgiving? Your mom throwing down for Thanksgiving?" I'm like, "No, my dad."
That's
I always really, again, I grew up in a home where gender roles were not a factor.
Right.
So that's also something I appreciate for you guys. But I gotta go. I love talking to you.
And that's the key thing. Two things I take away from this discussion at the end here. One was Sharon wanted to change. She knew something was wrong and she wanted to change. She wanted to be a better person. So she was already on the cusp of changing. Larry, her husband, having the standard to say, "Look, I'm not here for that, for your disrespect." Having a standard, putting his foot down, um, putting respect because that is key. Respect. You have to respect me. Love without respect equals foolishness. And we all know what that foolishness is. Don't do that. And I think that is very important for us to learn and to hopefully take away from this discussion. That, yes, Sharon wanted to change. You can't love people into change. He showed her that he loved her, but he didn't put up with her disrespect. And you can't love people into change. That can't happen. They have to want to change. They have to want to be better. And once you see that they don't want to be better, what Kiki was saying, like, accepting people for who they are and forgiving. No, once you realize that they don't want to change, that's when you leave them alone. It's difficult to do, yes, but you have to do it. You have to make up your mind that you have to protect yourself. You have to respect yourself. I know you've all heard this before, but it's very important to tell the young people because a lot of them don't know. They don't have mothers or fathers or anyone to tell them in the world. They have only internet people and influencers. And it's important that we tell them, respect yourself. If you're loving them and they're not giving you love in return and not showing signs that they want to be better, want to change, want to treat you right, end it. Let me say it again. Walk away from the table. Pull over in the car. Get out and get yourself home. Never go any place that you can't afford to get back from. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You can't fix people. Love only fixes people who want to be fixed. That's it. Anyways, that's my 2 cents worth about this video. I hope that you found something enlightening in it or something that was, you know, something you could learn. Forgive me, I'm blacking out. I've been up all night, but I hope you found something wonderful and something useful in this video. And leave a comment if you think I've missed something or if you wanted to add some things in it, because I want to hear what you have to say. And don't forget to like. Uh, I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the new subscribers, and I look forward to seeing you next time in the next video.